Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I discuss the Jack Capuano firing, Chris Kreider's fining, and another week of key injuries to key players. A Canadian hockey legend retired this week, and the Central Scouting Department announces their mid-season rankings of the 2017 draft-eligible players. We will also look at all the other news around the hockey world over the past week. We will have all the details, plus some college hockey talk, the KHL Minute, and our picks of the week, coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 1, Episode 23, recorded on Wednesday, January 18th, 2017. Capuano, you're fired.
Shut up and sit down.
6:25 on the clock. This is the first of 5 between these two teams. Canes in Brooklyn in early February. Elias Lindholm out in front, forked wide by Jordan Staal. Noah Hannafin at the point. Brock McGinn turns diagonally across now. Tennyson a shot, headed down by Grice. They score on the rebound. Jordan Staal with all of that power out in front. 7-4 Carolina.
Holy cow!
And now the fans are back into it, Joe. Let's go Rangers, the chant up from the crowd. Patrick Sharp. Played deep, pass Fox up. Cam Hughes fires, blocked, and cleared aside. Good effort by Zibanejad. Nash trying to break down. Good pass to Buchnevich. Buchnevich leaves it. Zibanejad shoots. And a save. Yemi got a piece of it, went off the glass. Along the boards, Zibanejad got it back to Nash. Makes a move on Hoodlum. Here's Zibanejad. Deflected in! Dan Girardi, I believe, deflected it in. It's 7-6. Do you believe this? Maybe it's Zibanejad's goal after all.
Simmons off a stick. Pasternak flicks the backhand. Marchand in a race with Provorov. Provorov around the boards. Pasternak digs it loose with the Philadelphia net open in the final minute. Voracek. Marchand can walk it in. A 5-point day. 2 goals, 3 assists. And Boston sticks the knife into Philadelphia's heart.
Hello and welcome to episode 23 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name is Wayne. I'm here with Steve. How's it going today, Steve?
It's going great, Wayne. How you doing tonight?
Oh, back for another week of Hockey Talk.
Man. I tell you, good to be with you.
Yeah. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. Before we get going, though, like we do every week, we like to invite everybody to get involved with the show. You can email our show if you have any questions or want to give us any feedback. And the email is feedback@thehockeynuts.com. Or you can leave us a voicemail at 919-960-1718. If you want to just simply tweet me, I'm at Wayne Halley 9. And you can tweet Steve at sball504man. You can visit us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts. We also have a YouTube channel. And with the Facebook and YouTube in mind, I've got an advancement that we're trying this week. And I've figured out a way to... All this technology stuff is great, isn't it? We figured out a way to do our live stream not only to YouTube as we do each week, but I am streaming it to our Facebook page as well. And I'm actually doing a third site as well. We're streaming over to Twitch under the talk show. If you're familiar with Twitch, they have all the different categories and games that you can watch. And you can we're under the talk shows category under Twitch. Not sure if we'll continue to stream there or not. It's just another place that has a lot of people looking for live content to watch. So I figured we'd just go ahead and stream there. The way I was thinking it, Twitch is for gaming channels or gaming related content, and they have a talk show category. We're a talk show. We're talking about a game, right?
We're talking about the best game in the world.
That's right. So I figured, hey, what the hey? We'll start streaming on Twitch. It doesn't take any additional effort on our part to do it. So you can watch us, like I said, at Twitch. You can watch us at Facebook, at our Facebook page, or you could watch us live on YouTube. And you can watch us record the show live before you actually get it on your podcatcher or whatever you use to listen to podcasts. Of course, the live stream is the unedited, unpolished, no editing version of our show. And then, of course, if you subscribe to the podcast, you'll get the polished, edited version that after all the edits that I make, cutting out all the coughs and hacks and dog barking and everything else. So
Wayne, you're a brilliant guy. You do great.
So yeah, we got some issues to overcome some weeks, but complete with sicknesses and everything else. But this week we're trying something new. We're streaming to multiple places at once. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on talking about, like you said, the greatest game on earth.
Yeah.
Now we've had a lot of wild games this week. I don't know how much you've seen. We've seen some 8-7 games, some 7-6 games, some crazy games this week. We've seen good teams playing each other and blowing each other out. I mean, it's been a crazy week.
Yes, it has.
A lot of goals scored around the league this week. And we had another win streak. Washington had a winning streak at 9 games. That got snapped this week.
Yeah.
I think it was Pittsburgh that snapped that one, wasn't it?
Yeah, Pittsburgh won 8-7.
Yeah, that was that 8-7 game.
Yeah.
And I've been meaning to go back. I missed that game because I was either working or reffing. I can't remember. But I've been meaning to go back and watch that game because I heard it was a fantastic game to watch. I heard it was up and down hockey all night long. So I've been meaning to watch that on replay. And one of these days I'll get in there and watch that game. But that's the beauty of having the NHL online streaming services. You can go back and watch any game at any time. So I will get back and watch that game. But it was, from what I understand, it was a hell of a game to watch. So. But let's talk about our 3 teams.
Yes.
And I want to start with Carolina this week because they've had a pretty good week up until last night anyway.
Yeah.
They've had some big wins. They had a 5-2 win against Buffalo back on the 13th. They had a 7-4 win against the Islanders on the 14th. So those are back-to-back nights. They scored 12 goals. For a team that's not known for their offensive prowess, they did pretty well. But then last night they lost 4-1 to a very good Columbus team. And in that one, I did watch that game end to end. And in that one, Cam Ward, to me, just looked tired. Because he's played how many games in a row now? I mean, it's ridiculous how many games he's playing.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, well, it was kind of rhetorical. But but yeah, he's played a number of games in a row. And he hasn't had a break because Eddie Lack has been sick and hurt and concussion and... You name it, he's had all kinds of problems, and Carolina doesn't have much depth in goals, so he's been forced to play basically every game for them. But last night, he looked very tired, and it basically paved the way after the Blue Jackets went up 4-1 in the second. They decided to yank Ward and put in their future number 1 goaltender, Alex Nedeljkovic.
Yes.
Made his NHL debut last night against Columbus. And he's an Ohio kid. He's an American. I know his name looks like he's Polish or something, but he's an American.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And he made his NHL debut against his hometown team last night. His folks were there. He had a lot of friends and family there. So it was great to see him get his NHL debut. And he played pretty well. He didn't allow any goals, and he played roughly half the game. So I don't know what your thoughts on Carolina.
Carolina is one of the better teams now in the NHL. If you look at their record since November, you're looking at a team that is playing like a playoff team. You and I have talked them up all year. And we see, we get the local news, we get the local Hurricanes speak on the team, so we might be privy to things that people that are listening to this show outside the state of North Carolina aren't privy to.
Yeah.
But I look at Carolina as a year away from really making some noise in the playoffs. They could sneak in this year. It would be surprising to me, but we know where they went last year. They were in it the whole way, and I think they finished, 9th or 10th in the Eastern Conference last year?
I think they ended up 9th.
Yeah.
At the end of the season.
And they were in the playoff picture right up until the end.
Yep.
So this should not be a surprise to people who watch the Hurricanes. And it also shouldn't be a surprise to the people who don't cover them, but maybe follow them in the standings just because Carolina moves up into a playoffs position or close to it.
Yep.
They don't get a lot of coverage, and that's actually not too good. They deserve to be covered more than they are.
And they're playing extremely well at home.
Yeah,
that's where they particularly lately they've been on an amazing long, a very long stretch of really good hockey at home. They're still struggling a little bit on the road. That's one thing that they still need to improve on. But I did see a stat last night. Carolina, their record at this point in the season, it's the best year they've had since 2005, 2006.
Wow.
And, of course, we all know what happened that year.
They won the Stanley Cup.
They won the Cup. So,
yeah.
So there looks like that team is starting to gel, as we expected. And neither one of us were sure that they were going to make the playoffs this year.
Right.
But definitely.
We both believe they will definitely make it next year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. If they continue improving the way they have been.
Right. I agree with you 100% there.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to your Rangers.
The Rangers had 3 losses. They're really struggling right now, Wayne. They're playing. What I see on the ice, first of all, I think Henrik is going through some confidence issues in his game. He might not be tracking the puck like he normally does, and it's affected his play. But more importantly than that, because he's gone through those little stretches 5, 6, 7 years ago, he's had times where that's happened. But what I see happening in the last few games is a breakdown in the defensive play and in the defensive zone in front of Henrik, forcing him to have to make saves on guys right in front of the net who have nobody covering them, taking shots. Dallas did it last night, and unfortunately, Henrik didn't stop one of those shots.
Yeah.
A lot of times in a lot of games, you'll see him stop shots like that. But last night, Dallas scored on every opportunity they had like that. So the communication on the defensive side of the puck and the breakdowns defensively in front of him, I think, are a major problem right now. And I'm sure Vigneault and those guys are working on that and talking about that.
Yep. But
the Rangers just don't look good. They look flat. I think this 5-day bye really hurt them. They have come out of this flat and have not. They've lacked the passion that they normally have on the ice. That's my feelings.
They still seem to be scoring. They still seem to be scoring a lot of goals, though.
They're scoring they're scoring, but they're giving up goals and just not looking. They just don't look good.
Defensively, they're struggling, yeah.
Struggling. They lost 4-2 to Toronto, lost 5-4 to Montreal in a game we had won. We had that game in hand in the Bell Center and gave it to Montreal. They scored 3 goals in the last 6 minutes, I think it was, to win the game. Yep. And then Dallas last night was just, we started out so well. We were playing well against them, and the next thing you know, Dallas scored like 3 goals in a row, and then they were up at 7-3, and we came back in the third period and made it 7-6, and really should have tied the game, but didn't. We outshot them 25-4 in the third period, but couldn't come up with that last goal. So, anyways, that's the Rangers. They're not playing well. Let's hear about the Bruins.
Well, before that, didn't I hear that Zibanejad is back, though?
He is. He played last night, scored 1 goal, and assisted on either 1 or 2 others.
That's going to help them.
Yeah, he looked really good. Looked good on the power play. And I think, it might take, you have an injury like that, Wayne, and I don't skate day to day, but it's got to really be something where you know how it felt when you broke your leg.
Yeah.
And you're trying to skate and not feel any of that feeling when you're healthy or when you're healing. And so I'm sure it's going to take some time for him to improve even more than he is. But he's been skating not that long now. I want to say a week, maybe 10 days. But he played exceptionally well last night.
Good. And Rick Nash is what? Still out?
Rick Nash played very well last night.
Oh, he played. Okay.
With about a minute, Rick Nash played. Pavel Buchnevich is back. Pavel Buchnevich scored a goal last night.
So maybe a lot of their problems is just these guys that have been out for a long time have got to get their game legs back under them.
Yeah, could be. Mark Stahl kind of is a glue-like force that doesn't go in. Announcers and the guys in the press don't talk about it. It might not get written down in the stat sheets, but he's going through the concussion protocol.
Oh, is he?
And when he's not with the Rangers, it hurt. The team feels it. Mark Stahl is an alternate captain, and they need his presence on the ice sometimes, and they don't have that right now. So you know how it is, chemistry.
Yep. Well, every team has points during the season that they get in a lull, they get struggling, and something they got to work out of. But I think the Rangers will eventually get back. They just got to get. I don't know. Maybe they need another 5-day break.
It's coming up with the All-Star break, and you want to win some games before that.
That's true. You got a 4-day break coming up there. So next weekend coming up, and
right.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, Boston. I think their week went exactly as I said it would last podcast. Because I think last podcast I said, okay, based on where their opponents are in the standings and the way the Bruins perform against the teams above and below them in the standings, I predicted a loss against Nashville, a win against Philadelphia, and a loss against the Islanders, because Nashville and the Islanders are behind them in the standings and Philadelphia is ahead of them, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what happened? Exactly that. A loss against Nashville, a win against Philadelphia, and a loss against the Islanders. And everybody was riding high on the win against Philadelphia. It was a 6-3 win. Marchand had 5 points in that game. Great game all around by the team. And then they came out and laid an egg against the Islanders. And that was a home game, too. To get shut out at home against the Islanders.
Yeah.
I think someone said on the broadcast that it was the first time, since their Stanley Cup years, that the Islanders had shut out the Bruins in Boston. It'd been a long, long time since that happened.
So, and that was Jack Capuano's last game?
And that was Jack Capuano's last game.
And
Go figure.
I know that we're going to talk about that coming up here in the podcast.
Yep.
But
yeah, we will. So yeah, I've never seen an NHL coach get fired after a win before. It's a first for me. Maybe it's happened before, but we'll talk about it anyway. But yeah, it just continues. Boston's continuing to play. They play good when they want to, but they lay eggs against these weaker teams that they should be beating, and it feels like they're leaving a lot of points on the table.
Yeah.
Standings points. I mean, that they need to be finding a way to beat these. Stay motivated against these weaker teams. I just don't have an answer for what the problem is there. But there's a lot of rumors flying around in Boston about some trades coming up, and I don't know. Maybe they're thinking of doing something to shake things up. But one of the rumors that I've heard over the last couple days is Brandon Carlo is being shopped around the league, and sounds like Colorado may be interested.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't know. The name I've heard is Carlo for Gabriel Landeskog, and I'm sure there'll be more players involved if that trade does come to fruition. But if it ends up being a 1-for-1, I don't like it personally, because good defensemen are harder to come by than good forwards, as far as I'm concerned. And
Gabriel Landeskog is the captain of the team.
He is the captain, but he is only 24 years old.
Yeah.
So he's a very young captain. He wouldn't be coming to Boston to be a captain, that's for sure.
Right.
Because you're not gonna take a 24-year-old kid and make him captain over Zdeno Chara or Patrice Bergeron.
Yep.
So
very true. Even Brad Marchand.
Yeah. And Marchand, yeah. So anyway, but I don't want to talk too much about rumors, but that's one of the big ones flying around the Boston area right now. So. All right, well, there were a bunch of other games against good teams, or, involving good teams playing each other last week. And let me run down some of the scores of those big games. On the 12th, the Wild destroyed the Canadiens 7-1. And I didn't see that game, of course, but I was very happy to see that score. You knew that was coming, right?
I was waiting for it. You heard my little laughter there to start it off with me.
You knew that was coming. And then on that same night, the Senators beat the Penguins 4-1, which was kind of a surprise to me, even though the Senators are playing very well this year. But Penguins are playing lights-out hockey right now.
Yeah.
Now, on the 13th, another very surprising score. Capitals beating the Blackhawks 6-0.
They beat the snot out of them. And Washington is definitely... They have surpassed Columbus. They are now the best team playing the best hockey in the NHL.
I
don't think there's anybody who's going to deny that.
I totally agree.
Yep.
But that was a very surprising score. Actually, I had that game on. It was one of those days where, I'll have the game on the television up above me, but I'm working on whatever on my computer. So the game will be on, and I just kept hearing, score! And I look up, Capitals score. Score! I'm like, my God, it's 6-0?
Yeah.
So I wasn't really watching the game, but I had it on. But, I was very surprised to see the Blackhawks basically lay an egg there in Washington. As far as other games, on the 14th, the Oilers beat the Flames 2-1 in the Battle of Alberta, which happens about 6 times a year. But those games are fun to watch. Those two teams hate each other. Yeah. And the Blues beat the Sharks 4-0. Also on the 14th, that was a surprising score because the Sharks have been playing good hockey of late. And then you have on the 15th, the Capitals with a back-to-back shutout, and they beat the Flyers 5-0 in that game.
And that was almost embarrassing. I watched that game, and they scored with ease. I mean, they could have put it up. Yep. They could have made it 10. It could have been 10-0.
Wow.
The Capitals again, the Flyers just weren't present.
Yep. Yeah, the Flyers haven't been playing well since they ended that long streak that they had going.
Yep. And they're off this week. They have the bye week this week.
Oh, it is their bye week. Okay.
Yeah, that was the last game before their bye week.
Yeah, so maybe that's what they need is a little bit of rest. Bruins are due for that, too. The Bruins have played quite a few more games than most of the other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Wild played the Blackhawks on the 15th and beat them 3-2. So that was, and I think the Wild are now ahead of the Blackhawks in the standings. I could be wrong on that.
I think I heard a quip last night that the Wild have won 17 of their last 20 games.
Wow. Yep.
So
because they had a big long streak and then it ended, but then they kept winning after that.
Kept winning, and so I have them up there with Columbus and.
Oh yeah, they're easily in the top 5 for sure. Yep.
Yep.
And the Blues played the Ducks on the 15th and beat them 2-1. That was in Anaheim, so that's a big win for St. Louis there. And then we had a wild game on the 16th. The Penguins and Capitals played each other. And I really look forward to that game. And I can't remember why I wasn't able to see it and I missed it. We talked about it at the top of the show. Penguins beating the Capitals 8-7. So, which was a bit of a recently the Capitals played the Penguins and I believe the Capitals won that one big recently.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was last week, the week before. Yeah. So those two teams seem to be beating each other up right now, but that 8-7 game I heard was quite a game to see. And then the Senators beat the Blues 6-4 on the 17th. So those were all of the games involving really good teams that I saw anyway, or that I made note of, other than the games that involve our teams, of course. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to transactions. And the biggest one that's happened was yesterday, was it?
It was yesterday, that's right.
The New York Islanders fired coach Jack Capuano on Tuesday and replaced him with assistant general manager Doug Weight. The Islanders, who advanced to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs last season, are 17-17-8 and last in the Eastern Conference. They defeated the Boston Bruins 4-0 in his last game on Monday. Garceau said, obviously, we're not in a position where we want to be standings-wise. I think everyone's disappointed where we're at. At the end of the day, organizationally, I don't think Jack was probably going to be a coach that we were going to bring back. At this point in time, to name Dougie Weight interim coach, we can start a coaching search now and not have to worry about the ramifications of trying to do that when Jack was head coach. Assistant coach Bob Corkum, who had been watching the games from the press box, will join Weight and assistant coach Greg Cronin behind the bench starting Thursday. Weight, a 19-season NHL forward who has never been a head coach, was an Islanders assistant coach in addition to assistant GM since 2011. We owe a ton of gratitude for the work that Jack did, Snow said. A lot of these players on our team came up through our system through Bridgeport, and Capuano coached some of those players as well. From where we went, going from a rebuild to making the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years, getting the second round last year was a big contributor to that. We thank him and wish him all the best. I know he's going to have success wherever he ends up. Okay, so there's a lot of love there for Capuano from Garth Snow. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Garth Snow and Jack Capuano were teammates at the University of Maine way back in the 80s, 90s.
Right.
Actually, I'm not sure they were teammates, but Capuano was there. I think Capuano left right before Snow got there. I'd have to look at the timelines, but either way, both have roots at Maine.
Yep.
Now, all these names that I've listed, Bob Corkum, Greg Cronin, and they also have a goaltending coach, Mike Dunham. These are all UMaine guys.
Yep.
Garth Snow has quite a few guys in his staff that have ties to the University of Maine.
Right.
Must have made it difficult for him to sit Capuano down and say, "Look, bud, I got to let you go." I wonder how that conversation went, because they're good. They're good friends. I mean,
I'm surprised that it happened. I know they're not doing well, but I don't think what the Islanders are going through has anything to do with Jack Capuano.
No.
I think it's the off-season things where they lost Franz Nielsen. They lost even more Kyle Okposo. Michael Grabner was with that team a couple of years, 2-3 years ago.
Well, we said at the beginning of the year that the Islanders took a step backwards with losing those guys. We said it before the season even started. That team is weaker this year than they were last year.
And you can't convince me that it was all because of salary cap that they had to let these guys go. Maybe one of them, but if you're a crafty enough guy, look at what Stan Bowman is doing in Chicago. He's keeping the core together. And if he's able to do it, other people should be able to do it,
Yeah.
And I just think that that's the problem. And I'm going to say it again. I think Jack Capuano I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great coach. I think somebody's going to hire him one day.
Oh yeah, he'll be back.
And he deserved. Look what he did with the Islanders in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
I mean, they were really. I was worried about them in the division last year, or year before last. I knew they were going to make the playoffs.
They made the playoffs the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was really surprised that Garth Snow did. I mean, you heard the rumors all season long.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have anything to do, I don't think, with Jack Capuano. Yeah. I really don't. And it's sad that that's the business of hockey. It's the business of sports. Let's face it.
Well, and there's a lot of people around hockey, the press and whatnot, that are saying that Garth Snow is the guy that needs to go here, not Capuano. But I'm not sure it's just him either.
Yeah.
He's being directed from above to do this and do that. I mean,
right.
I know Wang is no longer the primary owner of the team, but he is still part of the ownership group.
Yeah.
He was doing some weird things with this team, and the whole arena situation is just a mess. I mean, it really is.
You want me? I think that is a major part of the problem, along with their off-season antics, losing major big-time players. I think they're not fitting in that Barclays Center. I just don't think it's made for hockey.
And it wasn't built for hockey, right?
Yeah. I think they're better off out in on the island at Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah.
They should have just stayed there, and they would be. Charles Wong would have to be forking over some money to keep his team there at Nassau Coliseum, but better off with that than the situation they're in now, where the ice, the icing system, the piping system under the ice is PVC, is what I've heard. It's PVC.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I've heard they've had a lot of problems with the ice there. That it's that making ice in that building was an afterthought. It wasn't designed originally for hockey, and it's obvious. I mean, they have to fold up the entire one end of the lower bowl. They got to fold up all the seats to make room for the rink, which is why you have that car in the corner there.
That's right. And it's always there.
Yeah.
And any fan who knows, who pays any attention at all, especially an Islanders fan, is going to know that.
Yep.
And, what do you think the players, I mean, if fans know it,
yep.
That's got to run through the players' minds. Hey, if I get hurt, look how they're cooling this icing system with PVC piping. instead of copper.
And with all the issues you have in the island, I'm surprised they're not talking about that team moving to like Quebec or whatever, rather than everybody likes to pick on Carolina. Oh, Carolina needs to move out of Carolina and go to another city. What about the island? I mean, their attendance is just as bad, if not worse, as Carolina. And you're already seeing Carolina. Like I said earlier in the year, the attendance in Carolina is better after Christmas than it is before Christmas. Traditionally, it's the way it's always been here. They go to games when they don't start going to games until the weather gets cold. Well, the weather's starting to get cold now here, so now people are going to games. They had a near sellout against the Islanders the other day. Down here.
You're going to see that from now on, Wayne. They'll sell out against the Colorado Avalanche.
Especially now that the team's starting to win again.
The team is playing well. That's right.
So you can't tell me that hockey can't survive in this market, when you've got cities like Nashville. Look how well they're doing. They're selling out. They're building almost, winning cures all, essentially, is what it comes down to. But that situation in the island is just a mess because, that wacky arena that they're playing in, I mean, it's a basketball arena. It's not a hockey arena.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know why they decided to go there. They'd be better off playing in the Garden. Not that they would ever do that, but they'd be better off playing in Madison Square Garden and sharing the building with the Rangers rather than staying at the Barclays Center. So who knows? All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next one. We've had a couple of trades in the past week. On the 13th of January, Colorado Avalanche traded forward Cody McLeod to the Nashville Predators for forward Felix Girard. And on January 11th, Toronto Maple Leafs traded goaltender Jonas Enroth to Anaheim for a 2018 7th-round pick. So these are kind of low-level trades, but they're trades nonetheless, so we wanted to get those in there. I don't know if you have anything to add to those. They're pretty...
No. They're not earth-shattering things, but they were transactions, like you said, that took place during the week. And
we got some big ones coming up. There's a lot of rumors starting to fly around the league of different trades as teams are starting to decide whether or not they're going to be buyers or sellers this year.
And they're eyeing that trade deadline.
The trade deadline is only about 6 weeks away, so here we are already talking about trade deadline. Isn't that crazy?
Yep.
So, all right, and another transaction we had this week, forward Derek Grant was claimed on waivers by the Nashville Predators on Wednesday. Grant, who's 26, had 3 assists and 19 penalty minutes in 35 games for the Buffalo Sabres, who had placed him on waivers on Tuesday. And he actually played for the Predators either Wednesday, I can't remember when I remember seeing him getting his first game in anyway. So that was the transactions for the week, unless you had some that I missed.
You got what I saw.
All right.
Over the ticker.
All right, let's move on to injuries. And we had a pretty busy week in the injury wire. Starting with Matt Cullen of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He'll be out 3 to 4 weeks with a foot injury. Cullen was injured Monday during an 8-7 overtime win against Washington Capitals. Eric Fehr replaced Cullen as the fourth-line center at practice on Tuesday with left-right wing Chris Kunitz and Scott Wilson and Tom Kuhnhackl splitting rushes at right wing. Cullen has 8 goals and 17 points in 43 games. He averages 13-16 of ice time per game with 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the penalty kill, most among Penguins forwards. Okay, first thing that struck me on this one was 17 points in 43 games. Not bad for a fourth-line guy.
Yep.
That's a lot of points for a guy on the fourth line.
Yep.
And I think I had heard that he is the third oldest player in the league behind, of course, Jágr and Shane Doan. So
we know him here in Carolina. He played here.
He played a lot of years here. Yep. He was on the Stanley Cup winning team.
Yep.
Back in 2006 here. All right, New York Rangers goalie Antti Raanta is expected to miss 7 to 10 days because of a lower body injury. Raanta, who did not practice on Monday, was injured in the first period against the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday. He was replaced by Henrik Lundqvist, who allowed 5 goals on 22 shots in a 5-4 loss. Ouch.
Yeah.
Raanta is 10-4 with a 2.23 goals against average, .923 save percentage, and 2 shutouts in 18 games for the Rangers this season. Magnus Hellberg was recalled from Hartford of the American Hockey League, where he was 10-9-1 with a .291 and a .905 save percentage, 25 games. Okay. Good numbers for Raanta, not so good for Hellberg.
But Hellberg played very good last night in the loss to Dallas. My wife and I, he comes in the game, and we have our normal thing because we've seen him play it. Give him Hellberg.
Yeah.
But no, he played well last night, and he's a big guy. If you ever seen him, he's a big guy. I don't
Really?
know how quickly he moves. I haven't watched him a tremendous amount, but he played well last night and took on some of their best shots because Dallas is a powerful offensive team.
They are. Yep. Even though they're struggling this year, they're still very dangerous.
Yep.
Offensively.
Very weird too about Ronta's injury. He played well. I didn't see anything that stood in the way. And then all of a sudden, he went over to the bench and talked with the trainers. They put him back in the game. He finished out the period, and then in the second period, Henrik became the starting goalie. So obviously something happened, but not bad enough for him to leave the game.
Wow.
He was gone.
And now he's going to be out 10 days. Yeah.
Yep.
Weird.
Yep.
Wonder if it's like a groin or something.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Pittsburgh Penguins defenseman Chris Letang is week to week with a lower body injury. Again, Coach Mike Sullivan said Monday. Letang was injured with 3 minutes into this Penguins 6-3 loss to the Detroit Red Wings at Joe Louis Arena on Saturday. Letang got tangled up with Red Wings forward Thomas Vanek, spun around and fell down and went to the locker room. He returned a few minutes later but left the game for good after one shift. Letang was placed on injury reserve Monday. His average ice time of 25-12 leads the Penguins, but he missed 7 games with a lower body injury and 5 games with an upper body injury. Man, this guy misses a lot of games, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's an injured guy. Yeah.
Good player, though, man.
Great player.
That's a big loss for the Penguins.
He's won the Norris Trophy, hasn't he?
I don't know if he has or not. He's been in the All-Star game many times.
Yeah.
I remember he was here for the All-Star game in 2011. I know that. Mm-hmm. He was sporting the mullet back then. I got pictures of him.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Tampa Bay Lightning forward Ryan Callahan is expected to miss approximately 4 weeks with a lower body injury. Callahan was injured on a 4-2 loss at the Philadelphia Flyers on January 7th and has missed the past 3 games. He previously missed 15 games with a lower body injury before returning against the Winnipeg Jets on January 3rd. The 31-year-old has 2 goals and 2 assists in 18 games this season. Another depth guy for Tampa Bay. Another injury for Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
What they need is Stamkos back in a bad way.
Oh, you're not kidding.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon either.
No, and right now Tampa Bay is struggling to stay afloat in the playoff race. They're quite a ways down the standings. Not completely out of it, but they've got a hill to climb to get back into it. All right, Colorado Avalanche goaltender Semyon Varlamov will be out at least 2 weeks because of a groin injury. We're going to shut Varlamov down until after the All-Star break, Coach Jack Bednar said to the Avalanche website on Wednesday. This is no longer a day-to-day thing. Varlamov was injured during a 6-4 loss to the Blackhawks on Tuesday when he allowed 5 goals on 26 shots. He is 6-17-0 with a 3.38 goals against average and an 8.98 save percentage in 24 games.
Ooh.
Those are ugly numbers, but
horrendous.
But Colorado is struggling as a team, so
they really are.
I'm sure not all of those goals are his fault.
Yeah.
They're just not playing. This team is not playing well, and it looks like a lot of their players will be on the move around the trade deadline.
Wayne, real quickly here, because I know we got a lot to cover, but once again, the departure of Patrick Roy, the mental, emotional impact of that departure.
You know what? They haven't been playing well since he left.
Yep. It's like you left him high and dry. And I remember one comment of one of the players was like, "I wish I'd played better so that he would have stayed." I can't remember what player that was. Might have been Gabriel Landeskog, but they hated seeing him go. He was a player's coach.
Yep, and maybe that's what they didn't want. Well, yeah, we talked about that when it happened, that it seemed to be that there was a disagreement between him and Joe Sakic.
Yeah.
On the direction of the team, and Patrick just decided I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I just throw it out.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird situation there, but that team has definitely struggled since Waugh left.
Yeah.
Not to say that Bednar is not a good coach, but
I think he is.
I'm sure he's a good coach, but he just doesn't have much to work with there. The team is just not playing well at all. All right, Nashville Predators defenseman Roman Josi was placed on injury reserve on Friday. Josi was injured in a 2-1 win against the Bruins on Thursday after a hit by Bruins forward Anton Bleed at 15:31 of the first period. Josi left the game, and Bleed received a major for interference. Yossi, who's 26, has 22 points in 42 games this season. That's a huge loss for Nashville.
That is.
I believe, though, they've got Subban back. I think I saw that he's back on the ice, so you're basically trading one guy for another.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
But Yossi is definitely probably their top defensive defenseman for sure. So, yeah, more struggles for the Predators defense.
Right.
All right, Minnesota Wild defenseman Jonas Brodin will miss at least 1 month because of a fractured finger. Brodin left at 4:52 of the second period during the Wild's 4-3 loss at the Devils on Tuesday. Brodin, who's 23, has 16 points in 43 games this season. The number 10 pick overall of the 2011 NHL draft has 70 points in 306 NHL games, all with the Wild. 10th overall pick should be putting up more points than that by now. That's my only comment to that one.
Yeah, you're right. He should be.
But he'll be out a month anyway. All right. I think that's it for injuries, unless you had some.
No, you got them all through
right.
what I had read.
Good deal. All right, well, let's move on to milestones, records, and honors. We had a few this week.
Mm-hmm.
Some weeks we only have just the players of the week, but we've had a few this week. So, Teemu Selanne and Joe Sakic were among those named to the International Ice Hockey Hall of Fame on Tuesday. Selanne, who's 46, had 684 goals, 1,457 points in 1,451 NHL games. But of course, this Hockey Hall of Fame is not the NHL Hall of Fame. This is the Hall of Fame for international play. And
Right.
he played for his native Finland at the Olympics 6 times, winning the silver medal at the 2006 Torino Olympics and the bronze medal 3 times in 98 to 2010 and 2014. Speaking of the 26 Olympics, just a side note that's kind of irrelevant. Did you know the Hillsborough Arena on the arena in my town? Remember back when the Hurricanes sent a number of players to the Olympics for different countries. Brett Hedican and Doug Waite, I believe. I can't even remember. I see these banners every night. The banners that hung in the rafters at the PNC Arena to celebrate all the Olympians that played in Carolina that went to the 2006 game. They hung banners for them in the arena for a year or so. Well, 2 of those banners hang now in our arena here in Hillsborough. Doug Waits and Brett Hedekins. For team, both of them played for Team USA.
Oh, I didn't know that at all.
So if you ever find yourself in Hillsborough, you should stop by the arena. You'll be able to. Of course, those banners are huge, and they take up the whole damn wall because they were hanging in PNC Arena at one time.
Yeah,
but they're now hanging in our arena. Okay, well, back to this story. That was just a side note.
That is interesting.
And of course, in 37 games at the Olympics, he had 24 goals and 43 points. He closed his international career with 6 points in 6 games as Finland's captain in the 2014 Sochi Olympics and being named the tournament's most valuable player. Sakic captained the Colorado Avalanche to the Stanley Cup twice during his 20-year career with the Avalanche/Nordiques franchise. He's 9th in NHL history with 1,641 points in 1,378 games. He's also a member of the IIHF Triple Gold Club, winning gold medal for Canada at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics and the 1994 IIHF World Championship to go with the Stanley Cup Championships. Also named was Saku Koivu, 42, who has 832 points in 1,124 NHL games with the Canadiens and Ducks. He spent 10 seasons as captain of the Canadiens. He was the first Europe-born player to hold that role and is second longest tenured Canadiens captain after Jean Beliveau. He also was captain for Finland at numerous international events, including the Olympics in 98, 2006, and 2010. Koivu also helped Finland win its first gold medal at the IIHF World Championship in 95 and was captain when Finland advanced to the championship game at the 2004 World Cup of Hockey. In addition, the class of 2017 includes former NHL defenseman Uwe Krupp and former women's hockey star Angela Ruggiero. Dieter Kalt, former president of the Austrian Ice Hockey Federation, will also be inducted as a builder. The induction ceremony will be held in Cologne, Germany on May 21st, the last day of this year's World Championship. Washington Capitals center Nick Backstrom, Boston Bruins left wing Brad Marchand, and Carolina Hurricanes left wing Brock McGinn have been named the NHL's 3 stars for the week ending January 15th. Backstrom led the league in assists and points with 10 points in 4 games as the Capitals won all 4 of them to extend their overall winning streak to 9 games, propel Washington to the top of the NHL standings. Marchand finished the week second league scoring with 8 points in 3 games as the Bruins won 2 of 3 starts to improve to 23-18-5, second in the Atlantic Division. McGinn finished the week tied for third in league scoring with 7 points in 3 games as the Hurricanes recorded 3 victories, improving their record to 21-15-7. So kudos to those guys.
Had a great week for Brendan McGinn.
And kudos to those guys that we got cut off there on our Skype stream, so we didn't get to talk about the Hall of the International Hall of Fame, but kudos to those guys.
They picked 2 of the best.
Yeah, with Solani and Sakic leading the way there.
Yeah.
All right, so we will move on. 4-time Olympic gold medalist Hayley Wickenheiser, a trailblazer in women's hockey who announced her retirement on Friday, was honored by the Edmonton Oilers and Calgary Flames prior to their game at Rogers Place on Saturday. Wickenheiser, who's 38, is the all-time leader in points for Canada's national women's team, with 379 points in 276 games, and 168 of those were goals. Wickenheiser scored 18 goals and 51 points in 26 games for Canada at the Winter Olympics. The center scored 37 goals and 86 points in 61 games at the Women's World Championships. NHL all-time leading scorer Wayne Gretzky, a partner and vice chairman of the Oilers Entertainment Group, hosted the pregame ceremony at Center Ice. You've touched so many lives and opened so many doors for young girls who one day may win gold medal, Gretzky said. Gretzky capped off the salute to Wickenheiser by calling her the female Gordie Howe. There were a lot of colliding factors, the biggest one probably going to medical school, she said. I didn't want to wait too much longer to do that, and I've had a few opportunities in the game that have come up. Wickenheiser competed in 6 Olympics, including the 2000 Sydney Olympics when she played softball for Canada.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that. But
quite an athlete.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's always been called by, well, of course, Gretzky wouldn't say it, but she's always been called the Wayne Gretzky of women's hockey. Best player for Canada for a number of years. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. And great ambassador for women's hockey. And women's hockey, I've seen it personally in all the local rinks that I visited. There are so many more girls playing the game now than ever before. And it's great to see. I've always felt that that hockey should not just be a boys' game. You know, when I was growing up playing, it was known as kind of like football, as just a boys-only game. And you saw very, very few girls playing. But now, hell, the high school I went to in Vermont now has a girls' hockey team.
And that's
Yep. They have their own team now instead of having to play with the boys. So, and of course, University of Maine, I went to school there. They obviously have a women's hockey team now there too. So it's great to see the growth on the women's side of the game, and it's pretty decent hockey. We've got a few women playing in the beer leagues that I'm involved in here locally, and there's a couple of those girls that are better players than I am, for sure. You know, they played at a very high level. We had one girl that was playing in our league that played at Harvard. Another girl played at a Division III school in Minnesota who's continuing to play, and they're playing, you know, at the same level as the guys are.
That's really something.
So, yeah, great to see. Alex Ovechkin scored twice, including the opening goal 35 seconds into the game, to become the first player in Washington Capitals history to reach the 1,000-point plateau and help them to their 7th consecutive victory. Ovechkin became the 84th NHL player, the 6th active player to reach the 1,000-point milestone, doing so in his 880th game. Elias Sports Bureau notes that 23 players have hit the mark in fewer games, the last being Jaromir Jagr in 763 games. Ovechkin is a 6-time winner of the Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy, scored his 545th and 546th NHL goals to move past the legendary Canadiens scorer who scored 544 goals in 978 games, into sole possession of 29th place on the league's all-time list. Ovechkin also became the 16th player in league history to reach 20 goals in each of his first 12 seasons. His 21 goals share third in the NHL this season behind only Sidney Crosby and Jeff Carter. Terrific numbers. You're starting to see Ovechkin get to the point where he's getting compared to the all-time greats of the game now.
Yep.
And he's got a lot of hockey left in him, too.
Yeah, I think he does. Quite a few seasons to go. Wouldn't be surprised if it's 5, 7, 8 years left for him playing the way he is.
Yeah, I don't see how he couldn't reach. He might be able to reach Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
It's a reach.
That is.
It's a reach. What, Gretzky has, 801, right?
Gretzky has 894 goals.
94. Oh, okay. I don't know why I was thinking 801. I think that's Gordie Howe's number.
Yeah, Gordie Howe has 801. That's correct.
So he might reach Howe. I don't know if he can reach Gretzky.
Yeah.
That's 300 goals.
Yeah.
That's 350 goals from now. I don't know if he can reach Gretzky. But if he stays healthy, he could reach Gordie Howe and be number 2 all time. All right, so let's move on to suspensions and fines. We didn't have any until today.
Right.
New York Rangers forward Chris Kreider today got fined $5,000, the maximum allowable under the collective bargaining agreement, for hitting Dallas Stars forward Cody Aiken with his helmet during a fight during NHL game number 663 in New York on Tuesday, January 17th. The incident occurred at 1:52 of the second period. You saw the game, you saw the play, so you can shed some light on this one.
Once again, it stems from the first game we played Dallas this year when Cody Eakin, took a vicious hit on Henrik Lundqvist. And I don't think that's ever left the players' minds. And, that's one of those things, Wayne, you're an official, and I don't want to, but, I'm sure you're privy to those types of things. When you have something like that happen, the next time they come to town or the next game that's played, it's talked about. The players know. And I'm sure Kreider, didn't take much, although to me it looked like Cody Eakin instigated that fight. He body slammed him to the ice to end it, Kreider.
Yeah.
And I never saw him hit him with his helmet, but again, that may have been something that I just missed. But, hey.
Well, evidently it happened.
Eakin's not guilty. He threw punches.
Yeah, oh yeah.
In my opinion, he started the fight.
Yep.
He dropped his gloves. So how you find Kreider and you don't find Cody Eakin, I don't know. It didn't make sense to me, but it's neither here nor there.
Well, it sounds like somewhere along the line there was a headbutt. That seems to be what the fine was for.
Mm-hmm.
Was hitting the guy with his helmet. Now, you're absolutely right. These players take numbers, and it comes up. There, when they see a player did something wrong, and it even happens in the beer leagues. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And of course in the beer leagues, these teams, you're looking at leagues of 4 to 6 to 8 teams, so they play each other a lot more often than they do in the NHL.
Right.
Like the Rangers and Dallas are going to play each other twice this year.
Right.
Or twice a year anyway.
That's right.
Whereas, you got these beer league guys that get together, and there's certain teams in the leagues that I referee when they play each other, or in particular when certain players are playing against each other. There's players that hate each other, and you referee long enough in a particular league, you get to know those guys that don't like each other, and you got to keep an eye on them,
right,
to make sure they don't do something stupid.
That's right.
Which means if you're keeping one eye on them, you're taking away from watching the rest of the game. It makes it that much more challenging to catch everything else going on.
That's right.
But
yes, in particular, Wayne, along the lines of what you're saying, there's those guys like Chris Neal. He'll get in a fight with any team. But then there's specific things that happen during games where the two teams are playing. For example, the Rangers in Dallas in the first game, when you saw Henrik Lundqvist knocked out of the game by Cody Eakin. Well, when he comes to town in New York, you better believe the fans, the players, even they're going to get on him. They're going to ride his ass. Excuse my French.
Yep.
They're going to get on him because of what happened. And so this should have been, and I'm not saying it wasn't, but it should have been something that I think the officials should have expected it. It certainly livened up the Gardens crowd.
Yep.
Anyways.
As an official, you kind of have to ride that line, though. You can expect it and look for it, but at the same time, you can't penalize players until they actually do something. So.
Right.
You kind of have to let things play out. You can't penalize a guy. You can't you can't give him the verdict before they do the crime, so to speak.
That's very That's a very good point. You're right. You're right.
But you can be aware of those situations and keep an eye out, because it will help you react quicker and be more decisive when it does finally break down and the crap hits the fan, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all part of managing a game, and the more games you do, the better you get at managing the game is the term they use a lot. So anyway, all right, well, let's move on to some of the other stories that we came across that we found were kind of interesting to talk about. First of all, one came down today. Center Nolan Patrick of Brandon in the Western Hockey League and center Nico Hischier of Halifax in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League were named captains of their respective teams at the 2017 Sherwin-Williams Canadian Hockey League / NHL Top Prospects game. The 22nd annual showcase of the top 40 players eligible for the 2017 NHL Draft will be played at Videotron Center in Quebec City on January 30th. Now, this game is a great one to watch, and I think NHL Network generally televises this game. They're calling it the top 40 players eligible for the draft. It's really the top 40 players playing Major Junior in Canada eligible for the draft.
Right.
You're not going to see college players playing this game, but guaranteed just about all these 40 players that are involved in this game are going to be drafted at some point.
Right.
So it's a great game to watch, to see future prospects, future talent going on in the league. So
I was very impressed with Nico Hischier in the just recently concluded World Juniors.
Yeah, he had a good tournament. Yep.
Those guys Switzerland nearly beat the United States. Yep.
And if Nolan Patrick hadn't been injured, he would have been playing for Canada in that tournament as well. Because he was named to the team, or the initial roster that came out had his name on it, and he would have been the only undrafted player playing for Canada. Mm-hmm. So obviously the scouts are pretty high on that kid. And speaking of Nolan Patrick of Brandon in the Western Hockey League again is the number 1 player in NHL Central Scouting's midterm rankings of the top North American skaters eligible for the 2017 NHL Draft. Central Scouting revealed its midterm rankings for the top North American and international skaters and goaltenders on Wednesday. That was today. The 2017 draft will be held at United Center in Chicago on June 23rd, 24th. Yeah. So what they do is you got this Central Scouting Bureau in the NHL that kind of keeps track of all the players that are projected to be drafted, and puts out this Central Scouting rankings twice a year. They have a midterm ranking, and then they have an end of season right before the draft ranking. Mm-hmm. And so the midterm ranking came out today. So all of the scouts and around the league, of course, most of these players are well known to them, but to those of us who don't get a chance to see all these skaters playing down in the minors or in the juniors and college and everything else, at least gets those names in front of us anyway. And boy, I'd love to go to the United Center on June 23rd, 24th. For the draft.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun?
That would be fun to go.
Yeah.
Anybody out there wants to sponsor our trip to Chicago, we'll be happy to cover it for all of the listeners. and live stream and everything else right from the United Center. But we would need someone to pick up the tab for the travel for us. I know I could probably get the time off. I don't know about you, but
yeah, I'd find a way.
Yeah. We should have gone the year they had it here, but I don't think I was here yet, actually. That was quite a few years ago since they've had it here. So, but would be fun anyway. All right, well, let's move on to the HockeyNuts.com power rankings for the week.
Yes, sir.
And this week, it is your turn to give us your
You're telling me it's my turn here.
Yep.
So I'm going to start out and start down this list. And I'll go slowly. You add your 2 cents in, Wayne.
All right.
But I'm going to start at number 15. And at 15, I had the Ottawa Senators.
Okay.
We had them 8th on our rankings of last week, so they've dropped quite substantially.
Yep.
They're maintaining their lock on second place in the Atlantic Division, but that's I never expected Ottawa to be where they are right now. Guy
Yeah.
Boucher has obviously done a great job there.
Yep.
Number 14 is Toronto, and they were number 18 last week, so they're moving up, and they looked really, really good against us.
They've been winning a lot lately.
As I listened to Sam Rosen, he was very impressed with the job that Mike Babcock has done to this point with that team. They looked really good. Number 13 is the Calgary Flames, up from 17 last week, and look out. They may, move through the Western Conference like they did a couple years ago, winning in the first round of the playoffs. You never know. Calgary may be for real. Number 12, St. Louis, down one slot from 11 last week, but maintaining. I'm still waiting for them to take off a little bit.
Yep.
Score some goals, win some games, and move up. They're staying right where they are. Win a few, lose a few. Win a few, lose a few.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Number 11 this week, I have Boston, up one slot from 12th last week. I still think they're playing very well. Number 10, the San Jose Sharks. Did you see that commercial?
Yes, I did. I meant to ask you about that. The Joe Thornton and
Joe Thornton, Brett Burns commercial in the barbershop.
in the barbershop. Yeah, that was awesome.
Almost picked it as my pick of the week. But absolutely hilarious.
Yeah,
commercial.
if you haven't seen that commercial, you need to look it up because it is hilarious.
And they have an outtakes too. They have the actual commercial itself on YouTube, and they also have another one that's the outtakes, which is as funny, if not funnier. And, my wife came in last night and laughed her head off at it when she saw me watching that. But it was anyways,
funny.
San Jose's playing good, and they're going to be a solid team. They're definitely going to make the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
The Edmonton Oilers, I have up at 9, up from 13 last week. Made a move. They had a good week. Number 8, and barely number 8, the New York Rangers, down 3 slots from number 5 last week. And I think I mentioned to you, they're just not playing well right now.
Yep, they're dropping.
They're dropping. Number 7, Anaheim, up from number 10 last week. They're obviously playing good. Great defense. It's a very good defensive team. Ryan Getzlaf is bringing it this year.
Yep.
He's playing well. He's having a good year. Number 6, Pittsburgh, down from number 2 last week. The only reason I did that is they lost a game or two, and the teams that are above them have more points in their standings than Pittsburgh. So I moved them down because these other teams moved up.
Pittsburgh, I've noticed, you never know. From one night to the next, you never know what you're going to get from them. They've had games this year where they've gotten blown out one night and then come out and blow out a team the next night. So they're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team right now.
Yep.
So
I agree with you.
You never know, and Bruins have a game against them coming up, and hopefully we're going to get the team that doesn't want to play when they play the Bruins.
I will be pulling for the Bruins in that game.
Yeah.
Number 5, Montreal, up one slot from number 6 last week. They're playing good hockey. They shouldn't have beat the Rangers this week, but they were given a gift.
Yep.
Number 4, Chicago. Same place as they were last week. Number 3, Minnesota, up 4 slots from number 7 last week. And there, as I said, they had, if not the last game, the game before, had won 17 of their last 20 hockey games.
Yeah, they're playing very, very well.
They're playing incredibly well, right behind Washington and Columbus as the 3 best teams in the league right now.
Yep.
Minnesota's at 3, 2 is Columbus. And I moved them down out of that list because from number 1 last week, because Washington had their 9-game winning streak.
Yep.
They just lost, but still, I find it hard that you'd find many people disagreeing with Washington being at number 1, moving up from number 3 last week as being the best team in the NHL.
I don't disagree. I had the top 3 the same as yours: Washington, Columbus, Minnesota. So yep. I think I had Pittsburgh 4, but any one of those 6 teams at top 6. After Minnesota, Chicago, Montreal, Pittsburgh, you could shuffle them in any order as far as I'm concerned. They're all playing extremely well. All right, well, let's look ahead to the week coming up. And Boston has got a pretty brutal schedule coming up. They've got Detroit on the 18th. That is tonight. They've got Chicago on the 20th, and that's at home, so that helps. But Chicago's a very tough team. They've got Pittsburgh on the 22nd. That's in Pittsburgh. And then they've got Detroit on the 24th. So, my prediction this week, Boston will lose both games to Detroit, but they'll beat Chicago and Pittsburgh. because that's how they've been playing this year.
Oh my! I never count out Detroit, anyways. But I don't know, Wayne. I think Boston is gonna surprise you. They may have a good week this week.
Well, I'm hoping for a split on the week.
Yeah. Well, I think they're going to at least get that. But
the Rangers have a busy week too.
Not nearly as confident in my team, but I think that it's one game, one win. Putting together the 60 minutes on the ice is all it's going to take, and they'll get back to their winning ways.
Out of it. Yep.
Right. They're at Toronto tomorrow night, then at Detroit, NBC game of the week on the 22nd. That game starts at 12:30. I will not miss that game. Then Monday night, I think it is, the very next night, they play the Los Angeles Kings in New York, which is always a good game. You don't want to miss that. And then they play the Philadelphia Flyers on next Wednesday. We may get a chance to report on that game before the podcast, but the Flyers and the Rangers, oh, what a rivalry.
Yeah, and I think that's your rivalry game next week, too.
I think it is.
And this week, your rivalry game is the first Boston-Detroit game, so.
That'll be a good one.
So, it should be a good one.
Yeah.
First game's in Boston, so no, it's at Detroit. I'm sorry. I got that wrong. The other game at the end of the week is at Boston. So.
Right.
All right, well, Carolina has a brutal schedule this week. I don't envy them one bit. They got Pittsburgh on the 20th, Columbus on the 21st, Washington on the 23rd. So not only they got 3 games in 4 nights, but look at the teams they're playing. Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Washington.
3 of the 5 best teams in the NHL.
Yep. As far as I'm concerned, if they can find a way to get 1 out of 3 on this, I would call it I'd take it and run, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And with 2 of those games being at home, if they can steal some points there, they're playing very well at home. They might be able to steal some points.
Yeah.
So, that's going to be tough. And then, of course, coming up this next week, just a reminder, we'll talk more about it in next week's podcast, but you've got the NHL All-Star Weekend coming up next weekend, so it's going to be a very light schedule for league games in concern. So, next week we'll talk more about the NHL All-Star Weekend, but from the 27th to the 30th, there's no teams playing as they shut down for the All-Star break. All right, so other games I've got circled on my calendar this week, obviously including teams that are playing very well right now. I've got the Senators and Blue Jackets and the Capitals and the Blues playing on the 19th. On the 21st, I've got Oilers Flames, again, Battle of Alberta. Senators Maple Leafs, which should be one of your Hockey Night in Canada games. Probably your early game will be the Leafs game, and then the Oilers Flames will be the nightcap for Hockey Night in Canada.
Once again, I rarely miss Hockey Night in Canada.
Yep.
Unless the Rangers are playing in another game. It's a great thing to watch every week, especially when Don Cherry comes out with his snowflake suits or his the many colorful suits that he wears in between periods.
Yep. And then on the 21st as well, you've got Ducks and Wild playing. That should be a good game involving 2 Western Conference teams. And on the 22nd, you've got Blue Jackets Senators. Those are 2 teams playing very well in the East. And then you got Blues Penguins on the 24th, and then Capitals Senators on the 24th. So some of these games aren't as good as the games we had this week, like, Capitals, Penguins, but they're still very, very good games this upcoming week. And then finally, I've got Ducks at home against the Oilers on the 25th, and that's just, again, a number of really good teams and players playing against each other. All right, well, let's move on to our college NCAA Minute, and I'll start with Maine's performance over the past week. They split with UConn. They lost 6-3 in Bridgeport on Thursday night against UConn. And then on Saturday afternoon, they came out and won 4-0, and that was their Fenway Park game. So now the big joke running around Maine is that they want to play all their games at Fenway Park. because Maine has played 3 games at Fenway Park over the past several years, and they've won all 3 games.
Isn't that?
Despite the team having an overall losing record in all those seasons. So Maine does play well at Fenway for some reason.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to play that well in their own building and on the road, of course.
They probably get pumped, the Fenway Park atmosphere, and
Well, a lot of the Maine fans do show up. They
Yeah.
they make the trip down. So, and there were a lot of Maine fans there. I watched the game, and they had quite a few fans there for the game. They had a lot more than UConn, as far as I could tell.
Really something.
Yep. And this weekend, Maine has a home-and-home against Boston University.
Oh.
That's going to be a very tough test for them. I fully expect BU to sweep the series, but if they could steal one against BU, that'll be huge for them. And they will make, if that happens, they will make our upset list, which is what I'm heading to next. Looking at upsets over the past week, unranked Rensselaer beat Harvard 4-0 on Friday night. And Harvard's the number 2 team in the country, or they were at the time. Boston University and Boston College played on Friday night. That was a 2-1 win for BU. Minnesota Duluth and St. Cloud played a game, and unranked St. Cloud beat Minnesota Duluth 2-1, and that Minnesota Duluth team was the number 3 team in the country at the time. Unranked Miami beat North Dakota 6-3. North Dakota was number 7 in the nation at the time. 14th ranked Western Michigan beat 1 ranked Denver 3-0 on Friday night.
That's something. Wow.
Yep. Of course, that was at Western Michigan, so that helped them. And then 18th ranked Minnesota State lost to unranked Bowling Green 3-2, and that was at Minnesota State. On Saturday, 19th ranked Cornell beat 15th ranked Quinnipiac 2-1. Number 2 ranked Harvard lost to number 11 ranked Union 2-1. And that was at Union. Unranked Merrimack beat 13th ranked Notre Dame 4-2, and unranked Providence beat 12th ranked Vermont 4-1. Of course, Providence just won the national championship a couple years ago, so the fact that they're unranked, they're still a difficult team to beat.
Right.
And then on Monday, BU and Boston College played again. And of course, they're under the new rankings at that point. Number 3 BU beat number 10 Boston College 3-0. So as far as the week ahead, there's only a couple of games around the league or around the country that involve 2 ranked teams. Number 11, Ohio State goes to number 1, Penn State, both Friday and Saturday nights. And number 4, Minnesota Duluth is at number 8, North Dakota, both Friday and Saturday night. And then on Saturday night, 16th ranked St. Lawrence plays 15th ranked Cornell. And as far as the rankings go this week, your USCollegeHockeyOnline.com ranking at number 10, Boston College, who dropped from number 8 last week. Number 9 is Union, who is up from number 11. Number 8 is North Dakota, down from number 7. Number 7 is Minnesota, up from number 9. They're starting to climb the charts. Number 6 is Harvard, who dropped all the way from number 2. I believe they lost 2 games this weekend. That's why they dropped. And number 5 is UMass Lowell, who is up from number 6. Number 4 is Minnesota Duluth, down from number 1. They lost 2 games as well last weekend. I'm sorry, they're down from number 3. BU is this week's number 3 team, and they are up from number 5. I still think you're going to see BU at the top of the rankings here pretty soon.
I agree.
They just have too many good players.
Too much power.
Not to be there. Hopefully Maine will knock them down a peg or 2 this weekend, but I doubt it. Denver is your number 2 team this week, down from the number 1 spot. And your new number 1 is Penn State. They are up from number 4. And they are the only team in the country that has less than 4 wins. And they actually less than 4 losses, I mean. And they're 16-2-1. Every other team in the country has at least 4 losses. So Penn State is having a good year. An incredible story there because 3 years ago, maybe they were a club. They were a club team. They weren't even Division I. They weren't even varsity.
God.
And they've already climbed to number 1 in the country. So
The Nittany Lions.
Yep, they got a big, huge donation from some, I don't remember the alumni's name, but a member of the alumni gave them millions of dollars to help that school turn their hockey team from a club team into a varsity team, and they have built a new arena there, and it is it's pretty good to see, which which is good to see because that, I think, makes Penn State would be the closest Division I school for us to travel to should we want to take in a college game.
Yeah, Altoona, Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, I can't remember where they are, but we could take a trip up there sometime, like if Maine goes down to play Penn State.
There you go, man.
That would be a good way to go. All right, so that's all I have for college hockey news this week. So let's move on to our KHL Minute, and I'll go ahead and let you start.
You want me to start on this?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, I will start. Mine is in regards to Akbars. I've been following what teams are clinching the playoffs.
Yes.
And how teams are bunching up in the standings. If you take a look at the KHL standings right now, you'll notice that there are definitely tiers of teams. It happens the same way in the NHL each year. As you get nearer and nearer to the playoffs, teams bunch up. And that kind of stuff is happening right now.
Yep.
Akbars, back on form, books their playoff spot. And that was the title of the article. 2 long streaks came to an end in this game. Akbars snapped a 4-game run without a win, while Dynamo Moscow's 6-game winning streak was halted. As a result, Akbars Kazan became the second team in the Eastern Conference to clinch a playoff spot, reaching 97 points for the season. And, of course, the first-place team in the Eastern Conference is Magnitogorsk.
Yep.
With Sergei Mozyakin.
Yep.
So you have another team there, and I can't remember, that's 1 point away from clinching. Might be Torpedo. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
They may have already clinched then.
But there's like one team there that's 1 spot away. The article continues. Akbars defeated Dynamo Moscow 2-1. The playoff picture is, in the West, both SKA and CSKA have long clinched the playoffs, with both teams remarkable play this year. Below the 2 teams is a tier of 3 teams that seem likely to make the playoffs. Torpedo with 95 points, Lokomotiv with 94 points, and Dynamo Moscow with 89. After that, it is a cat fight in the alley for the remaining three slots between 5 teams: Dynamo Minsk, Vityaz, Jokerit, which is Helsinki's team.
Yep.
HC Sochi, and Slovan Bratislava. In the East, Metalurg Magnitogorsk has clinched a spot, with Akbars right behind them, finishing in second as the second team to clinch. Akbars is 1 point from there's one. Let's see. Let me look at this. I'm not sure I got that right. There is a team in the third position that is 1 point behind Akbars that is ready to clinch. And Wayne, as of this time, I didn't get the right team's name down there. I have Akbars down there again.
Oh, okay.
There is a team that's getting ready to clinch the third spot in that division. After that, there's a drop-off of 14 points, where 8 teams are separated by 9 points, all vying for the remaining 5 playoff spots. It's starting to get exciting. And that was my KHL Minute for this week.
Good. All right, well, mine is a bit of a individual honor. You mentioned him earlier. Sergei Mozyakin became the first player in KHL history to score 700 points, thanks to his assist on Chris Lee's overtime winner in a 3-2 overtime win at home versus Torpedo last week. So, short but sweet, but just Mozyakin is continuing to pile up the points there. I believe he's leading the league in scoring at this point. Still.
Yeah, he is.
He's a guy who doesn't have much. I don't think he's ever come over to the U.S. and played in the NHL, has he?
Yeah, I've never seen him over here. I don't know that fans over here know very much about him, but Magnitogorsk has won the last 2 Gagarin Cups, and he's been the central cog in the wheel.
Yep.
Be honest with you, before we started following the KHL Minute, I didn't know that much about him, and I've kind of studied up on him since then.
And I'm sure he's got, if he's leading that league in scoring, there's a lot of former NHL players playing in that league, so he's absolutely got to have NHL talent. He just obviously didn't feel like he wanted to come over here. Some guys just don't want to come over here.
Right.
So he's perfectly happy at home, and he's the Wayne Gretzky of Russian hockey, so to speak.
That's right. He's the
all-time leader in the K. Of course, the KHL doesn't. These points that you're seeing here, these records that you're seeing him I don't believe include the old Russian Elite League. I think it's only talking about KHL, which only formed, I don't know, a dozen or so years ago. Out of the, the whole thing with the KHL when they formed that league is they wanted to be more than just a Russian league. They wanted to call it the Continental Hockey League because they wanted teams from other countries in Europe and Asia other than just Russian teams. So they took the Russian Elite League, or the old Russian Elite League, took all the teams from that to form the basis of the KHL, and then added, convinced a few of the club teams coming from, like you said, we've got a team from Finland. I think there's a team or two from Austria. You've got a few teams from some of the other European countries. And
Serbia, I believe, has a team.
Yeah, and of course, this year you got the team from China that's joined the league. So they're starting to make this league into more of a an Eastern Hemisphere professional league, whereas the NHL is over here in the West.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's primarily why we're following this league. It is the premier league, as far as I'm concerned, in the eastern half of the world.
I agree with you 100%.
So, but Sergei Mozyakin right now is the guy at the top of the scoring records in that league. So kudos to him for getting his 700th point last week.
Yes, sir.
All right. So now that we move on to our picks of the week, and we will, there's one story this week around the NHL that we've yet to talk about, and that was the retiring of Martin St. Louis, number 26 in Tampa Bay, and that is your pick of the week this week.
That's what I picked as the pick of the week, and we could have put it in the body. Thank you, Wayne, we could have put it in the body of the podcast, and decided you were very kind to let me talk about it as the pick of the week. The little guy from Laval, Quebec, Marty St. Louis, became the first player in Tampa Bay Lightning history to have his number 26 retired. St. Louis, on January the 14th of this year, in a pregame ceremony, had his number 26 retired at Amalie Arena. St. Louis played 972 regular season games with the Lightning. He played, of course, with the Rangers as well after that for 2 seasons. But 972 games, regular season games with the Lightning, and was a key member of their Stanley Cup winning team in 2004, coached by John Tortorella. Throughout his 13 seasons with Tampa Bay, St. Louis won the Art Ross Trophy twice, in 2004 and 2013, and he was the Hart Trophy winner in 2004. He is the Lightning's leader in assists, 588, points, 953, game-winning goals, 64, and shorthanded goals, 28. He also holds Lightning Stanley Cup playoff records for goals, 33, assists, 35, points, 68, and game-winning goals, 8. There is no doubt whatsoever, he is a certain Hall of Famer in the years to come.
Oh, yeah, he is.
And I really got to know Marty St. Louis, unfortunately, those last 2 years when he was with the Rangers. I wished I'd have got to know him a little bit more when he was at Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yep.
Watched him play, but I tell you, again, you talk about chemistry. What a person can bring to a team and a locker room with just his presence and his persona. It truly was the case with Marty St. Louis, because he was not the best player on the ice for the Rangers, but he kept the team glued. We played good hockey with him. We went to the Stanley Cup when he was on our team.
Yep. He won a cup in Tampa Bay.
Right.
2004. Yep. Right before the lockout.
He had so many important things that he brings to teams as he played, and he was a joy to watch. When he scored a goal, man, the whole team lit up. The whole crowd. He's
fast. He was fast. One of the fastest players on the ice almost every night.
He was. I tell you, too, a story when we stood out at the bus, one of the nights we went to watch the Rangers play in Raleigh, he had just been traded to the team. And it was remember, that was a blockbuster trade.
Yep.
The Rangers trading to get Marty St. Louis. He came out of the bus, and we were all Rangers fans standing there watching, and everybody started yelling, "Marty, Marty!" And he acknowledged the crowd, looked at everybody and kind of waved. He did not come over and sign autographs that night. I wish he would have.
Yeah.
But he at least acknowledged, just 2 days he was a Ranger. That's it.
Wow.
And he acknowledged the crowd and waved and everything. And he's just a great guy. I really enjoyed watching him play. And he is going to be a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. And I knew he was special even way back before he came into the NHL. He played at the University of Vermont way back, and he was teammates with Tim Thomas.
Wow.
You know, the ex-Boston goaltender. Thomas. Vermont had a good team during those years. They went to a couple of NCAA tournaments. They never did much in the NCAA tournament, but they got to the tournament. And of course, the NCAA, that's an accomplishment. Just getting there. At the time, it was only 12 teams, and there's roughly 60 teams trying to get there, and they only take 12 then. They take 16 now, but back then it was 12. And he was basically the leader of the team. His line mate was a guy named Eric Perrin, who was even smaller than he is and just as fast. And when those two got on the ice, it was amazing to watch.
God.
And then, of course, you had Tim Thomas back in net for Vermont back then. And with those three guys essentially being the nucleus of that team, for those 4 years that they were there, they were a really good team there in Vermont. So I remember him way back then and knowing that he was going to make it. And Eric Perrin did have his, a season or two play in the NHL, but being even smaller than St. Louis and not quite as talented as him, he didn't last long in the league. He played a number of years in the American Hockey League, but he was, those two guys were a fun pair to watch when they got on the ice together.
Really something.
Yep.
Thank you, Wayne.
So kudos to him on that.
Yes.
And my pick of the week is a little bit different. It doesn't involve anything professional, at least not anymore for some of the guys. As we go into January, and I probably should have talked about it a week or two ago, but it was brought to my attention that it is now pond hockey tournament season.
Yeah.
If you go around pretty much the northern latitudes in the U.S. and pretty much throughout Canada, there are pond hockey tournaments. If you are probably north of... basically any of the states bordering Canada or anything north of Boston, essentially, in the Northeast. If you live up that way, there is probably a pond hockey tournament within a few hours' drive of where you are. I found a website that has probably 70, 80, 100 pond hockey tournaments that are going to be taking place in the months of January. Some have already taken place. That are taking place in the months of January, February, and very early March. Pretty much once you get into mid-March, the pond hockey thing is all over. And if you want to see some fun hockey, some people having a good time, you ought to check one of these tournaments out because they're fun. I've always wanted to play in one. I haven't had the opportunity to play in one. Living here in North Carolina is going to make it very difficult for me to play in one in the future, but unless I make the trip north all the way up to, Maine, Minnesota, upstate New York. I mean, there are tournaments going on all over the country. And of course it's big in Canada. But the biggest tournaments in the U.S. anyway are tournaments that are sponsored by Labatt Blue. Ironically, a Canadian beer company. But the biggest tournaments that you see around the country, they're generally one of the big sponsors of it. So, and the biggest one, at least in the U.S., is the one that's also sponsored by USA Hockey, and that's the Pond Hockey Nationals in Eagle River, Wisconsin. And I remember back in August, I went to their website. The Eagle River, Wisconsin Pond Hockey Tournament, essentially what they do is they take a lake and they set up a grid with 32 rinks on it or somewhere in that neighborhood, and they play a huge tournament. They have like 10, 12 different divisions, and you get 600 teams showing up, and they're all teams. And the way pond hockey works is it's obviously quite different than ice hockey. There's no boards, there's no referee, or there's no skating referee. There's a guy in boots on the side as the referee, and they play. The goals are basically about 6 inches high and about the same width of a hockey goal, but the middle of the goal is blocked off. So you're essentially, if you were to picture a hockey net, you're shooting at the low corners of the net. That's how you would score. So there's a board with small openings in it, one on each, off of each post essentially, and no higher than 6 inches. So obviously lifting the puck doesn't do any good because you can't score if you lift the puck more than 6 inches or so. And you play. Usually it's either 3-on-3 or 4-on-4, depending on the tournament. And obviously the rink is a little bit smaller, and you're playing on a frozen lake, so the ice conditions are not quite like what you would expect at an arena. But from everything I've seen, you can go on YouTube and watch different games going on. But from everything I've seen, it's a lot of fun to not only play, but just go in and watch. You see guys having a good time. And just playing the game like it was meant to be played. Outdoors, on a frozen lake. Everybody just having a blast. And, of course, a lot of beer, I'm sure, is being drunk, too. But yeah, the biggest tournament here in the U.S. is the USA Hockey Nationals in Eagle River, Wisconsin. And I went, like I said earlier, I went to their site because I followed, and the registration for this tournament opened back in August. And within 20 minutes, every slot in the entire tournament was completely sold out.
Unbelievable. God.
So, and from that point, they were taking on, a waiting list. So, essentially, you had all these teams, all these spots, and all these divisions pretty much sold out.
Incredible.
In a very, very short time. So, I don't know. If you're a hockey player and you haven't played in one of these tournaments, I definitely urge you to get a bunch of guys together, or girls, because they do have women's divisions, and go out and play. And they do have mixed teams as well at some of these tournaments. It's a lot of fun. And if you aren't a hockey player and you've got one of these tournaments going on near you, you can, obviously go and watch. There's plenty of room to watch, and it's a lot of fun.
So how many games in a division would a team play before they're in the playoffs?
They're guaranteed 4 games, I believe, because what they'll do is they'll take all the teams, obviously the different divisions, take all the teams and create kind of like the international where they have Pool A, Pool B, Pool C. You'll have a little round robin.
Right.
And then the top teams advance. So you'll have 4 games. Generally, usually the way these tournaments work is all your pool play games will be Friday and Saturday. And then if you're good enough, you win your pool, you advance to Sunday. And Sunday, you start having pool winners playing other pool winners and advancing all the way up through. So you could have 3 to 4 games more on Sunday if you advance all the way to the top of your division. Yeah, you could have 7-8 games. You're going to be gassed by the end of the weekend. And the games are shorter. They're not 60-minute games. They're like I think they play 2 15-minute halves or 2 20-minute halves, something like that. They're obviously shorter games, but the bottom line is it's a huge amount of fun, and I really want to go to one of these years. And I was actually looking at all the tournaments, and there's actually one only about an hour's drive from where my folks live. And if they continue to have this one year in and year out, I got a place to stay. I could just go up to Vermont. I just need to find a bunch of guys that want to get together to go play, that want to go to this spot in Vermont to play pond hockey. But
that would be a lot of fun.
But yeah, pond hockey is a ton of fun, and this is something that's grown exponentially over the past several years. It used to be you'd only hear about 1 or 2 tournaments going on around the country. Now it seems like every state north of that's cold enough to freeze ice on a lake has pond hockey tournaments somewhere in their state every year. I know Maine has one, Vermont has their own, of course. New Hampshire, Massachusetts, upstate New York, all the Midwest, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, they all have, and of course Canada has tons of pond hockey tournaments in Canada. There's a big one in New Brunswick every year too. And of course every one of these large pond hockey tournaments all touts or all calls themselves the national championship. They're all competing for the national championship, but here in the U.S., the one that USA Hockey recognizes as the national championship is the one in Eagle River, Wisconsin. So
very interesting.
So one of these years, I'd like to make the trip to one of these tournaments. So that was my pick of the week.
Great pick of the week, Wayne.
Pond hockey.
Oh, was that a good one? Very good.
Yep. All right. Well, that pretty much does it for this week then. Next week's scheduled stream is scheduled to be Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. We got started a little bit late tonight because we had a few technical difficulties with getting us connected through Skype, but we got those solved. We got started about 7 o'clock, but next week we're shooting again for about 6:30, and yeah, if you want to get involved with the show, just you can email us at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. You can call us at 919-960-1718. You can tweet me. I'm at Wayne Halley 9. Steve is at SBall504man. Or you can post a message on our Facebook page at the Hockey Nuts, facebook.com/thehockeynuts. And then, of course, it seems to be our stream went pretty well, so we may try it again next week, streaming to both Facebook and YouTube anyway. I'm not sure we'll continue the Twitch stream, but we'll take it from there. So, unless you have anything else to add, we'll go ahead and finish it.
Bid you do, Wayne. Have a good night. Good working with you again.
All right. Well, you have a good night, and we'll see you next week.